Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Float Down the Coast for Sea Otter Awareness Week. We greatly apologize for some technical difficulties we had, so we're no longer live stream, but we're excited and dedicated to be here with you all. And I'm excited that you guys get to come and join all of these interpreters and biologists down our coastline. My name is Heather Barrett. I'm a sea otter biologist with Sea Otter Savvy, and I want to thank you guys all for joining us on day 3 of Sea Otter Awareness Week. Sea Otter Awareness Week occurs every year during the last week of September, and it's in partnership with Sea Otter Savvy, California State Parks, and Defenders of Wildlife. And our official calendar is going to be through the Defenders of Wildlife social platforms, and that link will be at the bottom after this video is posted to YouTube. There's even t-shirts available, a Sea Otter art auction, and so much more, so don't miss out. This year's theme is Ecosystem Mosaic, and you can see the logo here. It follows the idea that sea otter's ecosystem is a mosaic made up of tiny parts in which the removal of one of those key elements can actually damage the system structure and ultimately render the ecological picture incomplete. Now, the event also marks the third We Were Here Sea Otter event for the week. Now, Sea Otter Savvy's We Were Here Sea Otter program is dedicated to educating communities and stakeholders who are missing sea otters. And the southern sea otter range is currently from around a little north of Año Nuevo, which one of our speakers will be at today, and down around Gaviola State Park. We have another speaker there as well. But sea otters did inhabit all the way along the Pacific coast, and they're ecologically as well as culturally significant. And there's increasing discussion regarding range expansion and the possibility for reintroduction. So to move forward, government agencies as well as the sea otter research community really need to gauge public stakeholder opinions. And sea otters, like other fish and wildlife populations in the US, are held in public trust. And so what that means is that the government is protecting these resources to benefit the public, which is you guys. So you guys are stakeholders, and your opinions matter. And so the public is ultimately going to decide the fate of sea otters, and we want to hear your perspectives, whether it be support or concerns regarding this matter. So if at the end of this presentation, you are wondering what you can personally do, then please take our stakeholder survey. And the website and the links to all of that will be at the bottom of this YouTube. So now for today's virtual adventure, you guys are going to be visiting 7 locations along the Pacific coast, and you're going to learn more about this keystone species, get a glimpse of wild sea otters, and learn more about how these locations are specifically significant to sea otters. And you can also return to these locations later to explore on our Sea Otter Story Map, and that link will also be found below. So without further ado, now let's begin by visiting Joe, who's at Año Nuevo State Park. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Heather, thanks. And hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you guys about sea otters at the northern end of their range in California. So my name is Joe Tomaleone. I'm a biologist with the U.S. Geological Survey's Western Ecological Research Center. And we study sea otter population biology and behavior pretty much anywhere that you can find sea otters. But today we're here at beautiful Año Nuevo State Park, one of the crown jewels of the California State Park system, and a place that's really known better for a different species of marine mammal, the northern elephant seal. People come from around the world to see these massive seals hauled out on the beach, to watch the males combat during breeding season, and to even see pups born on the beach. But what a lot of these visitors don't know is that the waters of Año Nuevo State Park are full of sea otters as well. So historically, sea otters ranged from Japan all the way down the west coast of North America to Baja California. But today that range is fragmented from hunting during the fur trade. And in California, Año Nuevo represents the northernmost stronghold for southern sea otters. That means it's the last place in the north of the range where we have a established resident breeding population of sea otters. So you're probably wondering, just how many sea otters are there at Año Nuevo State Park? Well, we've got a pretty good idea of what that number looks like because we do a range-wide survey of sea otters every year in California, where we try to count every single otter in the state. So we know that here at Año Nuevo, there's a growing population of somewhere between 60 and 80 sea otters resident year-round. Now, that's a pretty robust number considering it's a relatively small area. So what makes Año Nuevo so good for sea otters? For starters, it's all about the habitat. If you look at the habitat further south from Año Nuevo towards Santa Cruz, and again further north from Año Nuevo towards San Francisco, what you see is a lot of open water, sandy bottom, very little kelp. That type of habitat doesn't support a lot of sea otters. But here at Año Nuevo, we have vast kelp forests, we have mixed substrate between rocky reefs and soft sediments bottoms, and we also have protected bights and coves. And together, all of those things make for really good sea otter habitat. And whenever you have good habitat, you probably have a pretty good prey base as well. A graduate student at University of San Francisco named Sophia Lyon just completed a diet study on the sea otter foraging behavior here at Año Nuevo and found that they incorporated a diverse array of invertebrate prey here at the park, but they really ate a lot of crabs. In fact, more than half of the prey that they consumed were crabs. So although Año Nuevo is apparently very good sea otter habitat, it's also very good habitat for another apex predator in the marine system, and that is the great white shark. White sharks are attracted to seal and sea lion rookeries like we have here at Año Nuevo, and again further north at the Farallon Islands, because they feed on these large pinnipeds, especially this time of year in coastal California waters. So Año Nuevo and the Farallons together are two of the major white shark hotspots in the entire world. And so there's a lot of sharks here, and there's a bunch of otters here as well. Although sharks are primarily feeding on seals and sea lions, they do bite otters. We don't have any evidence that they actually consume sea otters, but they do come up and they check them out. And since sharks don't have hands, they investigate things with their mouths. And unfortunately for the otters, that sort of interaction is usually fatal. And in fact, more than half of the sea otters in the entire state that wash up dead every year are bitten by sharks. And in Año Nuevo, that percentage is even higher. So Año Nuevo appears to be great sea otter habitat, but it's certainly a dangerous place for them to live in terms of shark presence. And I mentioned earlier that the northern edge of the range is where we're at today. It might surprise you to learn that the northern range periphery, the range edge, the sort of stronghold here at Año Nuevo, has pretty much been stuck for decades now. There's been no marching northward of the range boundary. And that's probably partially to do with sharks, probably partially to do with the inferior habitat further north, and potentially has something to do with prey availability as well. But whatever the reason or suite of factors affecting the lack of range expansion, that's holding the overall population back. And so in order for the whole southern sea otter population to grow, that range really needs to continue to expand northward and southward. So Año Nuevo State Park plays a key role here, potentially as a source population for founding individuals of sea otters traveling northward into uncharted waters naturally. So I hope you all learned something about sea otters at the northern edge of their range in California today. Thanks for listening, and I'll send it back to you, Heather.
Thank you so much, Joe. That is so interesting. And it is crazy the amount of shark bites that happen up at Año. So now we are going to be headed back down to Gena Bentall, who is at Elkhorn Slough. Hi, Gena.
Hi, everybody. I'm here in Moss Landing. My name is Gena Bentall, and I'm the director of Sea Otter Savvy. And Sea Otter Savvy's mission is to reduce human sea otter conflict and to really try to engage communities, communities defined in many different ways in their stewardship and protection. And so I'm coming to you from a really cool spot today called Elkhorn Slough. So that's S-L-O-U-G-H, Slough. It's kind of a weird looking word. So this is a tidal estuary, and it's significant in relation to sea otters for a couple reasons. And I know you don't really want to see my face anymore. You want to see where we're at. So I'm going to flip it around here. So right now we're looking at Pacific Coast Highway, that bridge you see in the distance, and that leads to Moss Landing Harbor and on to Monterey Bay. So this is an estuary where fresh water coming from inland connects with seawater coming from Monterey Bay, and it's strongly influenced by tides. So you can actually see, as I'm going to scan around and give you a view here. And if you have really sharp eyes, you'll be able to see some sea otters moving around. There's one right in our field of view right now. I'm sorry, I can't zoom in, but that otter is grooming. So she's rolling around. There's another one just popped up right next to her that's foraging. Sea otters in the slough, their activity is very dependent on tides. So right now we're at high tide in the slough, and you can't really see any canopy. So we refer to it as canopy, just like a redwood forest or an oak forest canopy, but this is coming up from the bottom under the water to the surface, and it forms sort of a mat on the surface of the water, and it might be kelp and it might be eelgrass. And the sea otters like to rest in it because it keeps them kind of safely anchored, might provide them some refuge from predators. And so these guys are kind of grooming right where the eelgrass might be showing up as the tide goes out. So right now, none of that canopy is visible because it's all underneath the water due to the high tide. So sea otters here in the slough tend to be active when it's high tide because they don't have any spots to comfortably rest with the eelgrass not exposed. And also their prey may be more accessible during high tides. They're able to get into some of those back saltwater marsh channels and some spots where they might not be able to reach when tide gets really low and the mud flats are all dried and exposed. So this is sort of ground zero for scientific understanding of the ecological role of sea otters in estuaries, in wetlands. This is the first place where scientists were really able to look at how sea otters forage, where they forage, and how that might be correlated with certain factors going on in the slough. So what they found here was that sea otters foraging on crabs helped to keep the eelgrass nice and healthy. And since the otters have been here, the eelgrass beds are much more lush and healthy and thriving. So it was really the first look at how sea otters can impact these wetland estuary ecosystems. And it's really relevant as we're going forward and considering how sea otters might expand their range into the other large estuary systems along the California coast that so far are not recolonized by sea otters. There's one other important factor I want to be sure to mention. Hopefully you guys can see that we have some recreationists here in the slough. So we have folks coming out on kayaks. We often have eco tour boats that come out. We have swimmers. Sometimes we have divers. We have people fishing from the shore. Mostly we have kayakers. And so this is a habitat that's very, very critical for sea otters, but it's also a place where people really like to go to recreate and explore and enjoy the outdoors and enjoy this beautiful place. And we just want to make sure everybody keeps in mind that privilege of coming out here to enjoy this beautiful place and the species that live here comes with the responsibility to take care of them, to show some stewardship. And there's really easy things that we can do when we're visiting places like this. We can keep our distance from sea otters. So if you come out kayaking, we recommend you give them at least 5 lengths of your kayak in space. Be sure you're not getting too close just to get your Instagram video or your selfie. So give them lots of space and make sure they're able to do the things that they need to do just to survive every day. And then I'm going to flip around real quick just to show you one more thing that you can do. So just this is a very popular spot for fishing from shore, and there's lots of trash that ends up along this edge. And I just picked up this fishing line just this morning before we were getting ready to film. So if you are fishing, be sure you pick up every scrap of your fishing line that breaks off, that's left behind, especially your hooks, and pick up any trash that you might have. And if you're just walking along and you see some of this, and it's not yours, you didn't leave it, pick it up anyway, because we are just a hop, skip, and a jump from the habitat of sea otters and lots of birds and fish. And this can get into that waterway really, really easily and cause some significant damage by entangling the wildlife. So 2 things you can do: give wildlife plenty of space when you're out viewing, and pick up any trash that you encounter anytime you go out exploring. And that's all I have for you here in Elkhorn Slough.
Yes, thank you so much, Jenna. And that is such a good point for everyone to note, which is to definitely pick up your trash and also respect the net. Make sure you're keeping your distance from wildlife. And thank you so much. Now we are going to head down to Patrick at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. There he is.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay? Just want to make sure we've got some construction happening here on top of the kelp forest exhibit. So that's why I'm here with the headphones and the microphone. But hello, everybody. My name is Patrick Webster. I work for the Monterey Bay Aquarium social media team. But my journey to come work here at the aquarium actually started off with sea otters. And I'm very thankful to have been able to work with some of the folks already here. Back in college, some 10 years ago, I got to spend some time tracking sea otters off the coast of Big Sur with Joe. I famously misidentified a head of bull kelp as a sea otter for about 2 hours in an activity budget. So I wasn't really cut out for the field exploration, but ended up making my way back over here to the aquarium and was able to work as a volunteer in the Sea Otter Surrogacy program here. Back then it was known as SORAC, Sea Otter Research and Conservation, right there for the hat. Because here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium is where Sea Otter Surrogacy took off here along the coast. So for those of you unaware, here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, we have some resident sea otters. We've been open since 1984, and we have had rescued sea otters in our care for that entire time. But one of the things that started here, a very important, surprising thing that occurred here that has had huge ramifications for sea otters here in California is that one of our rescued sea otters back in 2001 was Tula. And Tula, some of you may remember, was a long-standing member of our sea otter exhibit. And those sea otters that are on exhibit are actually, many of them, right behind me right here in this holding pool at the moment, because on top of the kelp forest here is where we take care of those sea otters. And Tula would have been in one of these enclosures just like so. And she happened to have a stillborn pup. And just then a stranded otter pup washed up along the shore, and we put both of them together, and Tula took to being a surrogate mother for that pup. And because of that, we were able to transition from our work of taking the rescued pups and having human divers diving with them off the back deck here of the aquarium, or you may have gotten to see them on exhibit if you've been taking a look at the otters at the aquarium for a long time. We were able to transition away from humans trying to bridge the gap to teach an otter how to be an otter. We didn't have a very high success rate of returning otters to the wild with that program. With Tula becoming a surrogate mother to that stranded pup, well, we were able to start leaving the Otter 101 to the sea otters and removing humans from that picture. So behind me, you might get to see some folks dressed as Darth Vader walking around with a welder's mask, a black poncho, where we try to remove the human element from the care of the otters and try to keep them as wild as possible. So if you come to the aquarium and you see those sea otters on exhibit, those are working mothers here at the aquarium. They have taken care of countless, over 100 young pups that have been stranded along the coast and come here to the aquarium. And then our sea otter mothers teach them how to survive, how to groom, how to forage, and then we can release them out there into the wild. And so where Gena is there, Elkhorn Slough, that is an environment that we have been releasing otters into for several decades. And now my understanding is that the genetics of Elkhorn Slough sea otters are a majority from rescued sea otters that came here to the aquarium that have been released into that estuary environment. And from the studies out there, like Gena was mentioning, those otters are helping to recover eelgrass beds. You may have heard of the effect that otters can have on kelp forests by eating urchins and other herbivorous invertebrates. The kelp can grow much larger and healthier and stay around much longer when otters are there. Turns out they might have the same type of effect in an estuary with the eelgrass through just doing what otters do, which is eat a whole lot of food during the day, a quarter of their body weight in food every day. And that has huge impacts on the ecosystem and the animals that are in that ecosystem and what they do to the vegetation that might be around. So otters from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Surrogacy Program being released into that Elkhorn Slough have helped to recover that environment. And now we're starting to think, okay, well, like Joe mentioned, otters used to go from Japan all the way over the Pacific Rim, all the way down into Mexico. What are some of those environments that we might be able to start releasing some of these stranded pups into going forward? Elkhorn Slough has recovered. We've got that Año Nuevo portion there that seems to have stabilized or has been blocked off from expansion for many decades there. So what does it look like to maybe have some of these young otters, naive otters who don't know where they live yet, as we have some construction happening over on the side there, falling victim to entropy. But what we've got going on here along the coast is a lot of work being done to figure out where can we put these otters back into their historic range, because we know that those otters have such an impact on their ecosystem. They help to rejuvenate these habitats, but also in doing so, they're able to help restore some coastal resilience that we may have been missing here for the last several hundred years without otters being along the coast. So threats of climate change, everything that's going on with the kelp along the coast, you folks may have heard about those stories. Otters are a key player in that game. And if we can get them into more areas, and maybe areas that are less competitive with what people are trying to get done with human industry, like in these estuary environments or these large bays like the San Francisco Bay, maybe those otters can help to rejuvenate those habitats and help replenish not only the otter population, but also the resilience of our coast, the fisheries of our coast, and those resources that humans rely on here and have relied on along these shores for 15,000 plus years here. So that's a little bit of that sea otter surrogacy program that's happening right here behind me. So the next time you come to the aquarium, not only do you get to see some of California's 3,000 sea otters living out here off the back deck along Cannery Row at Hopkins Marine Station next door, just off the back deck of the aquarium. But when you see those exhibit sea otters, just know that sometimes they're behind the scenes in exhibits just like this, helping raise that next generation of kelpie stewards there, those furry kelp gardeners that we happen to have here along our coast that are so crucial to the history of the coast and also its resilience. So with that, that's pretty much all I had to say as we have large things moving by my screen now.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us from the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And that is such a good point to mention that this is also another good plug. We need you guys to give your voice. You are stakeholders. Everyone watching this, please take the stakeholder survey that's going to be below in this video. And now we are going to be headed over to Isabella and Erica at Point Lobos Marine Reserve. There we go.
Thank you, Heather. Welcome to Point Lobos State Natural Reserve. We are here on the central coast of California, south of Monterey, and a few miles south from Carmel by the Sea. Specifically in Point Lobos State Natural Reserve, we are here at Whalers Cove, which is part of Point Lobos State Marine Reserve. And let's take a moment now and check out Whalers Cove. You can see that the sun is shining. It's a windy day and we have a lot of waves crashing on the shore. So Point Lobos State Marine Reserve is part of the Marine Protected Area, or MPA, network of California. Marine protected areas are designed to create healthy and happy habitats for all of our critters along the coast of California, and also to try to prevent we're lucky here in Point Lobos that we have the highest level of protection a marine protected area can have, which is a marine reserve. And what does it mean to be a marine reserve? Marine reserves have a strict no-take rule. This means that we can't hunt any organisms here, we can't fish in any parts of the park, we can't collect any non-living or living organisms in the park. So this means that if we're tide pooling or hiking, we can't collect any rocks or shells or living critters. So if we look out at Whalers Cove, just right behind me, you might see these patches. They look like golden brown patches and kind of plant-like material. And this is the canopy of the kelp forest that is found here. Whalers Cove is home to a beautiful kelp forest. And this kelp forest right now might seem just a little patchy, but if you were to go underwater, you would see that it's actually huge and tall. We have kelp that can grow 50 or 60 feet tall. It'll start growing at the very bottom of the seafloor, grow up in a tall column, and then spread out at the surface of the water. And we can find organisms living in all parts of the kelp. We can find little critters hiding in the surface or in the canopy of the kelp, swimming around to the middle of the kelp and hiding at the bottom too. And kelp is a type of giant algae that we have here and is a really important and beautiful habitat that we have. And a very notable and special organism that is found in is the southern sea otter. Now, Whalers Cove is a common place to spot sea otters in Point Lobos. Unfortunately, today the waters are a little rough. We haven't seen that many, and currently we are not seeing any. But sea otters are common here. There are about 30 to 80 that can be found in Point Lobos. And sea otters act as keystone species in this forest habitat. And as people have mentioned, keystone species help to balance out the habitats and ecosystems that are found underwater. Sea otters have a very voracious appetite. They love to eat a lot of food, and they need that to keep themselves alive. They can eat crabs, clams, abalone, and sea urchins. Because of their voracious appetite, these sea otters will eat a lot of these animals that love to graze on the kelp. And when they're controlling the ecosystem like this and balancing it out, this allows the kelp to grow back. And we're very lucky to have these sea otters here because they have allowed kelp to grow back so beautifully and rebound in a lot of areas. Now, not only are we lucky to have the sea otters here, but we are just so lucky to have the kelp forest in this area. It is an amazing recreation opportunity. Earlier, we were seeing a few scuba divers going into the water. This is a very popular diving spot in the park. Kelp also provides a lot of services for us humans. It's an important food source for us. It prevents coastal erosion. It will dampen those surges of water. So sea otters really like Whalers Cove because the kelp creates a calmer environment for them to hang out in. And before you visit Point Lobos, hopefully you can make it out here. It's important to read about the park and read about the rules and find out what you can do here. We ask visitors that they are respectful of the habitats here and respectful of our wildlife here. This means that visitors should not be harassing wildlife, shouting at them, or trying to go up and pet them. And we ask this because we want to keep our wildlife healthy and happy. And we also want visitors to pick up their trash and let any rocks or shells be and let them remain in this habitat. One, so that the other species that live here can use them, and two, so that other visitors who come later can enjoy them as well. And thank you so much for joining us here at Point Lobos. Happy Sea Otter Awareness Week, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabella. It is gorgeous behind you. I think we all wish that we could be at Point Lobos right now. And that's so true. Let's keep our wildlife wild. So now we are going to go head down to Morro Bay State Park and hear from Robyn. There you are, Robyn. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Morro Bay State Park. My name is Robyn Chase, and I'm a state park interpreter for California State Parks. And I'm so excited to welcome you here on your float down the coast. We're going to talk about our ecosystem superheroes today. Unfortunately, they are all out to lunch at this moment, but we will try to do some spotting through a very special scope that I have on the other side of the iPad here. But I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about Morro Bay and what makes this place so special and such a great place for the sea otter to reside. So as you can see behind me, we've got these calm waters, very similar to Elkhorn Slough. This is a protected bay. And this bay, Morro Bay, serves as a great place for sea otters to rest, relax, and forage for food, which, like I said, right now they're out on the bay, they're looking for their lunch. They're popping up behind me. You can kind of watch for them on the water there. But these sea otters are ecosystem superheroes in a way where we count on them to keep our kelp forests and our eelgrass beds here in the bay healthy. And one of the ways that they do that is what they're foraging for now are things like urchins. Without the sea otters out there in the bay foraging, our ecosystem would be out of whack, out of balance, right? So we depend on them to keep those kelp forests healthy. When they do that, they actually provide a great system for lots of other plants and animals to thrive in Morro Bay, making this a great nursery and habitat for lots of other types of animals that call this place home. But what do you think might be some challenges for the sea otter, our ecosystem superhero, in a place like Morro Bay? not only the sea otter loves to use this space, and on a clear day behind me, you can see boats and kayakers. It's a little foggy today. People also love to use Morro Bay as a place to recreate, to fish, to swim, all sorts of things. So there are some instances where these sea otters might have some close encounters with people. So what we do is we work with our partners in protection to help create programs. Like we have this awesome volunteer program called the Sea Life Stewards Program, where volunteers go out and paddle the bay and talk to visitors from all over the world about respect wildlife messaging and how they can view sea otters from afar and give them space to float. So we're so excited to welcome you to Morro Bay, and I wish I had some sea otters to show you. I'm going to go ahead and see if we can spot some. We had a whole bunch earlier this morning. We can see what we can find here.
No, that's a good point. Thanks so much, Robyn. I think this is good for people to know. Sea otters have to go out and eat a lot, right? So you might catch them in certain parts of the day where they'll be resting in their rafts. But then in that middle of the day point, it gets warmer and warmer. They're going to get hungry and hungrier. You can kind of see the gulls out there, which is cool. Sometimes a gull can be waiting at the surface for that sea otter to pop up to go steal something.
Exactly, Heather. And this morning, I'll tell you the best time, here we have one right here. The best time to come to Morro Bay, to Morro Rock to view sea otters rafting near the shore is actually in the morning before lunch. And you're likely to see at least a dozen, if not more, but they hang out fairly close to shore. So we just ask folks to, again, give them their space, make sure your pet is on a leash, allow them to rest and relax in between their foraging. And that's all I have for you from Morro Bay, but I'm so excited that I was able to talk to you while you floated down were able to float down the coast. And yeah, thanks for coming by.
Thank you so much, Robyn. And it's awesome. We got to see there it is for it. It's eating what it found. So we're headed away from Morro Bay State Park, and we are going to head down to Gaviola State Park with Parker. Hi, Parker.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Awesome. Thanks for having me here today, and welcome everyone. My name is Parker, and I am coming to you all today from the amazing Gaviola State Park. It's a little foggy out here. Today got that marine layer hanging out with us along the beautiful Gaviola coast. And for those of you who have never visited us here at Gaviola State Park, we are located about 30 miles to the west of Santa Barbara, California. So this area behind us here is the Santa Barbara Channel, which is a very, very important and biologically successful ecosystem. And this area is also an important habitat for our great friends. And we've been talking a lot about these friends today. And today I am here to share with you a little bit about our sea otters here in the Santa Barbara Channel, about some of the recovery efforts at their southernmost boundary along our coastline, about a particular study that was done about 10 years ago in our Santa Barbara Channel. So it's a pretty interesting and cool little study. And what they found is, well, okay, our friends the otters, they primarily fed on 3 different things. All right, our friend's gonna go down and find some food. I want you to be thinking about what those 3 types of foods might be. All right. Any ideas here? Any of you say, let's see. These things? Urchins. Urchins were one of the main things that they primarily fed on, along with crabs. I don't know, do any of you like to eat crabs as well? Perhaps some urchins. Ooh, those are both some very important food sources. But as a matter of fact, there was one type of food that these otters in the Santa Barbara Channel were found to eat more of than otters within their ranges here in California. All right, can you guess what that food source might be? All right, well, they ate a lot more octopus. A lot more octopus than other otters throughout California. That was some of the main findings around their food sources, but also they needed persistent kelp canopies, those kelp forests as well, which we have some great examples of those just to the west of us here at Gaviola State Park. As you get closer to Point Conception, that spot where California kind of sticks out into the ocean, that's the area where we are located near. So those are some of the two of the very important things, but also these otters, they were in pretty good condition, which meant that they weren't resource limited. So there was a great availability of food here, which is pretty great to allow them to extend even further south here in California. So that's a pretty good sign, don't you think? Yeah, I think so. But that meant that this would continue for strong population growth of the otter population. But now, what are some things that might be maybe limiting the otters? What might be some of those threats to their expansion? All right. Well, one of the main causes of death for otters in the Santa Barbara Channel, as we heard from earlier, was bites from white sharks. That was the #1 threat, which is pretty crazy. But also there were some other signs too. There's a lot of oil and gas production that occurs along our coastline and within the Santa Barbara Channel. And oil was one of the largest threats to the expansion. In case there was ever an oil spill along the coastline, which would ultimately harm the otters and their ability to insulate their dense coats. That's something that we have to think about when we're looking at places for reintroduction and expansion of otter populations. So I want you to think about that and think about the actions that we as people take as we help to restore populations all throughout the world, not just otters. But in addition to oil, there's also some busy shipping lanes that go right through the Santa Barbara Channel. And of course, due to our marine layer today, we won't be able to see those shipping lanes, but on a nice clear day, we can see them as well as all the way out to the Santa Barbara Channel Islands. But that is a little bit about our otter populations within the Santa Barbara Channel. And I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about them and their expansion efforts that are occurring in our region. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Parker. That is excellent information. And it's so true. The range ends. There's a lot going on down there. There's a lot of risks for these otters. So it's definitely been an issue. So it's definitely in consideration when they do discuss reintroduction. So what I'm going to do now, though, guys, we are headed to an extra special location. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you. We are going to have a pre-recorded video from Isabella, who is coming from Baja, California, to give us a little bit of information about sea otters that are in Baja. So here's the sneak peek, guys.
Hey everyone, my name is Gisela Heckel, and I am at the Ensenada Center for Scientific Research and Higher Education. So you all know that there are sea otters in California, but are there sea otters in Baja California, Mexico? I've prepared a few slides to explain this. In Mexico, the southern sea otter used to occur as far south as Morro Hermoso, and this is way down here, down the Baja California Peninsula midway. Skeletal remains from shell middens have shown that early Baja California hunter-gatherers used the sea otter mainly for food since 7,500 years ago before present. This ended with the Spanish conquest in the 16th century. However, as in California, when these territories were part of New Spain, the sea otter was hunted extensively during the 18th and 19th centuries, both by natives and Spaniards. The Spanish crown exported the pelts to the Philippines and then to China, where they were exchanged for many, many goods. In 1911, after protection by the International Fur Seal Treaty, only small populations remained in California and Baja California. The subspecies was considered extinct in Mexico in the 1960s, although some sightings were reported from that decade until the 1990s. Therefore, when the Mexican government issued the list of species at risk in 1994, the sea otter was considered endangered, not extinct, and this status is still conferred today. In September 2008, a fisherman from El Rosario recorded video images of 2 sea otters swimming near San Jeronimo Island and sent them to us. Based on this information, we surveyed the island and searched for sea otters by boat 8 times between October 2008 and September 2010. We sighted sea otters like this one on San Jeronimo Island on 3 out of 8 visits, always in close associations with harbor seals, as you can see here. The sea otters were identified as males. Further, a colleague from Baja California Sur reported 3 sightings near Cedros Island since 2015. In addition to the surveys, we conducted interviews of 6 local lobster and abalone fishermen from El Rosario in November 2010 to document additional sightings from Bahia El Rosario. The fishermen ranged in experience from senior retired fishermen that had fished for 65 years to novices. They reported 9 sightings between 1961 and 2007, totaling 22 sea otters at different sites in Bahia El Rosario, Bahia Maria, and Guadalupe Island. Another study in the 90s also had included interviews with fishermen. They reported 15 sightings of live sea otters between 1965 and 1994. However, none of the locations coincides with those in our study, so the sightings may be summed up. Furthermore, we had the opportunity to examine 2 dead sea otters, one entangled and one stranded. The dead male at Agua Blanca Beach that had become entangled in a fishing net and drowned. This is that otter. This is one of the most important causes of death identified in sea otters in Baja California and elsewhere. In addition, we found a dead stranded female in Bahia Todos Santos, Ensenada. It had wounds similar to those produced during sexual interaction. We took skin samples from both carcasses and carried out genetic analysis to find out if they came from California or represented a remnant population. Our preliminary analysis and more thorough analysis by the University of California, Los Angeles, confirmed that these individuals migrated hundreds of miles from at least San Nicolas Island to the sites we found them in Baja California. In conclusion, definitely there are sea otters in Baja California. However, as is usual in science, findings open many questions. Here, how many and where are the sea otters? To investigate this, we have received a grant from Friends of the Sea Otter to carry out the first systematic survey in search for sea otters along the coast and islands west of Baja California, as far south as was their previous occurrence. Our long-term goal is to estimate the population's abundance and distribution. We will start field work in April 2022, and I hope to bring good news to everyone. Thank you for your attention, and here is my contact information in case you would like to know more. All the best. Thank you. Bye.
Well, that was so interesting to hear. And we just want to say a big thank you out to Gisela, who couldn't live stream with us today, but sent us that video. So what I would like to do now is just inform everyone can turn back on their screens. We're all going to say a goodbye. If you guys had any questions watching this for any of our speakers, please don't hesitate to add your questions under this video, and we will get back to you guys shortly, as well as to remind you that you are all stakeholders, every single one of you watching this. And so it would be immensely helpful for you guys to take that stakeholder survey. That link is also below. So a big goodbye to everyone. Thank you all who joined us from all the different locations. And we're so excited that we got to see you guys here today. Thank you guys. And until next time, to our next float down the coast.